Hey guys, I wanted to do a quick video on the 511 UCR Thigh Rig. Show you that thing that I received yesterday. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do something, a full review or anything else. And yeah, I'm kind of time constrained. So at the same time, yeah, let's just do a live stream to get through. And obviously it will be available later on. So yeah, let's switch gears on. Um, for quite some time, I got to be volunteering for uh, as a first responder on some sporting events, and I was looking into getting something smaller than my regular backpack. So try a couple of things. Very first one was actually to get well the uh, the small pouch combination, tourniquet, Israeli bandages, couple band-aids, and so on. Still very tight, not very flexible in a way that I wanted to. So switch gears on, and got one of those leg panels on which I put also some other pouches on. It's basically same content, but it's still yeah. Well, that's really bulky, right? So I thought, let's get something else at least that I can check on and see what's going on. So back in February or March, order online the 511 UCR Thigh Rig, which is basically the same purpose as this one, but not as modular, which is not a bad thing. And looking at that thing yesterday, because I totally forgot about that I ordered that one. It was out of stock for whatever reason. Looking at this, I found this one really interesting. So let's take a minute, open it up, maybe change a couple things and customize it a bit, and try to stack it up. So there's some mesh panel in the back. Well, actually, an adjustable strap for the thigh, and one end access panel that you can just open up. There's some velcros on the back. There's some velcros also that are for which that you can use for Molly compatible. I'm not well, for about now a year, I tend to appreciate Molly, even if it's really tactical. But there's some really good advantages though. So, and obviously there's also the 4 magazine 5.56 pockets on the back, which are useless for anyone else outside of US or military, which I am. So I thought the design on its own, it's really interesting. It carries a lot. There's multiple pouches all over the place. There's even pouch that you can open straight up with that are kept shut with Velcro or hook and loop, whatever that you name your knowing it for. But yeah, it's quite interesting. There's two things that for which I'm kind of bothered with, but aren't a big deal. Very first one is actually this loop. There's a D-ring and some webbing with hook and loop. That's cool. The D-ring is kind of cool. This isn't cool. Yeah, it's gonna work for pretty much everything. You can put it on moly compatible. You'll be able to get it through any kind of moly. Kind of cool, but yeah. So around the same time, I've ordered a ZAG tool tactical keyring holder. I believe it's mostly used by law enforcement and public safety guys. So kind of neater, especially on your belt, because I don't intend to carry this on for extensive periods. And this is not part of my EDC at all. But keyring on its own, yeah, I kind of dig it. Can put my keys on, can put anything else. It's not too wide, so I would believe it's gonna make it work actually quite well. The other thing that I'm not a fan of is they just put a string line without any ways to restrain or to adjust else than modifying this knot, which is fine, but at the same time wouldn't hurt to get those small springy keeper things. So I'm gonna install some on this. So because I intend now to keep this one out, let's just chop the tabs. Well, the stuff that keeps it. We might take a look at this later on. So yeah, kind of like this one. So well, nobody's on the shot, but kind of expected at the same time. I didn't, and well, I'm usually online every Tuesday night around 7:30 or 8 for about an hour. Usually waiting to get just prior the Rain Dance Bushcraft. Chat on. That's interesting. Why this isn't working? I'm in the workshop at the moment. Just way too freaking hot outside right now. So, taking a break. Is it working as it should? I would bet so. These were closed and are actually ready to be used. First time I'm buying those keepers. I've been using them in past, but buying them are actually quite cheap, and I think I bought them for 75 Justinians. Well, it's not, yeah, those are Canadian dollars, by the way. So 75 cents. Canadian Copex, Justinians, or whatever the name that you want to give it to. money was so devaluated over the last years compared to the US dollar, I mean. That it's kind of funny. So I bought these small string keepers actually at the MAC, which is our version of REI in the US. So MAC stands for Mountain Equipment Co-op. I also bought some end keepers or strings, and you just have to push them through and to shut it over. I don't mind making knots, not at all. Yep, medication is going. The smaller arm is getting me through. Oh, did somebody join? Let's see who's in. No. Hamza. What's up? Or bon. To be honest, bonjour. Comment ça va? Ça va très bien. I'm actually making a small special this afternoon because it's just, well, it's not as hot as it is in Tunisia for you, but yeah, for good measure, it is freakingly hot today. It is about 35 degrees Celsius here, but we're kind of on the side where we're over winter at minus 35 and over summer at plus 35. Making it to work. So yeah. So basically I just added some keepers. Here's a small, well, actually pretty good rig. Kind of like it. Yeah. Kind of like this one. By the way, Hamza, excellent video on your actually about your Canadian products. And I'm still surprised that you were able to get all of this for less than $30 or so. Stepping aside a bit just to grab some medication. Yep. Won't get through. Anyway, so yeah, I kind of like this one. Let's try to fill this one up because there's nothing else around that we can do at this point. So why not taking the opportunity to fill it up and see if it's usable or not. But I kind of think it is. So I got some Medical Adventure Kit Trauma Pack. Actually a good one. Shove it right there. I don't know why. It's going, well, no, it is not as obvious. I also got the ultralight watertight medical kit number 3. This one, I'll try to shove it straight in the back within the mag pouch, which is working. It's a small boo-boo kit. Geez. it might just work. Simon, you should have a channel and do some videos. Well, I do have a channel, and this is the channel. The big problem that I got right now is a good way to get myself first. Yeah, you need to do some video to get yourself into the habit of doing it. But at the same time, filming with my cell phone is kind of weird because it tends to overheat and badly. And my tablet is kind of cool, but at the same time not cool because it is a great tablet, but kind of crappy on the camera side. So I'm kind of stuck. And this is why I'm using my laptop right now to do a small live stream. Yeah. So I'm trying to do my best right now to get my heads into doing a bit more video, which is kind of okay at the same time. I'm not known to get video all over the place every single week and all the time, but it's, yeah, I'm kind of fine with it for the moment, for the time being. But yeah, kind of fine. So Israeli bandages, that's another thing that I'm not digging too much, because these bandages are known as Israeli bandages, but in the 80s in Canada, we had something very similar that were issued for Canadian Forces personnel. Well, so similar. Well, this one is kind of vacuum sealed thingy, and the one they issued to Canadian soldiers were pretty much the same, except for the vacuum sealed part. Fixed, and it fits like a charm. Geez, did I finally found something that's gonna work? The more I'm looking into this, the more I'm liking it. And yeah, there's a small keeper thing on the top that you can adjust because there's small knot, but also you can also adjust from the very inside and either replace the D-ring, but also, and it's kind of weird to show up in this camera, well, any camera actually, but there's also a way to adjust the width actually the opening of this magazine pouch to open it more in back. It's kind of cool. I'm actually liking it. Take also the opportunity to install the ZT212 ZAG tool. It is meant to be used with the ZAG tool keyring. And it's really probably made for this kind of pouch, so I'll do it right now because everything's open. And there's a good amount of hook and loop inside, so you can put more stuff. Well, I would not, but there's a possibility to add some stuff from there. I kind of like it. Yeah. Unfortunately, well, as everything else in Canada, it's not cheap. We're speaking about 60 Justinians or Canadian dollars, whatever the name that you want to use. Let's look right now how it flows. Because, yeah, it is not uh, as big. Well, there's also less stuff in this than I got into my into the pouch I'm putting usually in my backpack. And it's not a molly type one. I'm just sticking this the top of these molly straps straight into the sling of a backpack it's making. Um, why is Canada so pricey? The eternal debate. Um, well, two things. The Canadian dollar is kind of weak compared to the US dollar. We're speaking like 70, right now it's like 70 or 75 cents, well, Canadian, 75 cent of Canadian currency to any US dollar. So yeah, kind of something like this. The other thing is that Canada, it is the second largest country in the world, but with a tenth of the US population. And for the good and the bad, we're trying to get equal opportunity for everybody that lives in this country. So um, for some very remote parts, you'll get more. It's going to be pricier to ship some stuff, but at the same time, we're kind of. It is not a law, but just the way that our culture works is that we're kind of subsiding in more densely areas with the price that we're going to pay some stuff delivered elsewhere. A postage stamp will cost the same in Montreal as it would cost, let's say, in Kuujjuaq, which is far, far away, or Tuktoyaktuk. Um, those places in North will pay the same $1 per letter to be sent back and forth across the country, which is not a bad thing. At the same time, I U.S. corporations put a premium on everything they're sending in Canada, and distributors are putting also their premium to everything that they're sending in Canada. When the Canadian dollar used to be almost at par with US, it wasn't a question. We just bought back and forth across the border. Well, US did not buy stuff as much in across the border as they're doing right now because well the dollar is in their advantage. So um, manufacturing, especially for exporters, are actually making stuff in Canada sent to US. This being said, the situation between Canada and US is not the same as in Canada and Mexico, or Canada and China, or US and China, or US and Mexico. Um, there's commercial exchange for about $2 billion per day between US and Canada. And the what it is called commercial balance, depending on how you whatever the number you're getting will be something between $2 and $18 billion in favor of US. This being said, there's some very good things that are made in US sent to Canada, but there's also some protectionism from US towards Canada, especially with lumber. The good old two by we call it SPF or spruce, pine, and fir. Um, so we're making lumber, and those are each 5 years we're getting some protectionism from the US because they believe our system gives an unfair advantage to our producer. At the same time, they're just eager to buy some lumber, so we have to keep up. So it's kind of a, and always used to be a kind of a love-hate relationship on many things about US and Canada, and we're, it's difficult to get through. Politicians are there and elect and paid to deal with this, so it's kind of crazy. The something else that I've learned, especially with talking with you, well, chatting with you over over text messages, is that Tunisia is actually receiving a lot of what we of containers from Canada on second-hand clothing and so on. And this is one of the reasons why you probably got um, this Hudson Bay heavy wool blanket and some Tilly hats. But the Tilly hats were, I was blown away with. Those are, well, around Montreal, we do have some Tilly retailers and even corporate ones. Actually, two, if I'm right. Uh, and some of those can be found between $80 and $120 right now at Tilly. Man, yeah, that's kind of thing that I wasn't ready to be blown away with. Even Tilly hats, those are freaking awesome. I do own one. It's T3 that is somewhere right there, and that T3 I had it for 20 years. Yeah, and many other countries as well. Something that I would like to, because I watched your video, like your last video last night. Well, just before bed, actually. Um, I would not actually use the hat to filter some water. Just by the way, um, and I will not recommend it. The small brass mesh is actually meant to be blocking mosquitoes, not something that you should use for water filtering. Tillys do have wire mesh options available at their store, and they are just snapping mesh. I'd rather use an handkerchief or maybe a shamag to filter water rather than my own hat. Um, yeah, it's basically the main thing why those wire mesh, brass wire mesh, actually were put uh, on these caps. I don't know why you're just crying right now, but it was my comment, and I was just too tired to answer you the full thing. I thought to chat with you on Tuesday night. Which, by the way, I don't know if you're waking up just to chat with us or you're working overnight, but I'm not sure if you are on the crazy side or the actual on the actual you're working overnight. So I'm not sure about it. Well, that yeah, but that theory, yeah, literally, it's I would not do it, not at all. Um, Crazies on the side. I'm gonna suppose you're still typing either with an English or French keyboard right now. Have you installed it, by the way? The probably on your Android. I would suppose that you have an Android phone anyway, and it's actually quite easy to switch between both languages. Okay, you do not work. That's something that I'm in the same situation these days. I'm in between. So, but at the same time, I know that unemployment rate is actually quite high in Tunisia. A friend of mine is actually across the pond from you in Spain. A close friend of mine actually. He's in Spain, in Barcelona, and he was telling me last week about the unemployment rate only in Spain. It is actually quite crazy. Always surprised when I'm hearing those numbers. I should be working that right now. Things were aligned, so I would be working right now without any gaps. But I think that vacation are actually impairing. Well, it is summer here as well, so many people are on vacation and they don't want to hire. Well, prior vacation is ending, so fortunately, I'll be working soon. Unemployment rate is as low as it can be. I believe we're close to 5% right now. So pretty much everybody's working, and actually with good jobs, pays well. Let's grab the whole chair. So yeah, that's kind of the way it is working. I'm not complaining at all. It is just a fact in the way that our economies um, are set up. If you don't know, man, what is your work? I'm actually a network specialist. Um, I'm working on computer networks. By trade, I'm a telecom technician, and I've been working in telecom for the last 20 years or so. What is popping up and down right now? It's something on my screen that scares the hell out of me. So yeah, for the last 20 years or so, I've been working in telecom. When I got out of school in '98, my last week of internship was the first one of an heavy icy rain storm that got us in eastern North America, ending up leaving a bit more than 10 centimeters of icy rain. And what we mean by icy rain, it's literally rain droplets that that are actually water, but when they touch any objects are freezing on spot. And we end up having something like, I don't know, 10 centimeters of icy rain on some structures. The power grid literally collapse. High voltage transmission towers collapse, the lines and everything. So from the first week of January or so, maybe a second week, and for about, I believe the last one to be reconnected to the grid took about 11 weeks. So those people were on generators and burning wood in their stove because wood eating is actually quite popular here. It is quite cheap. Um, so from that point on, I was working in radiocom, switched to phone system, then got back with a bit of IT work. Then I've worked in a NOC, in the Network Operations Center. Then switched to network admin, back in radiocom. I've done some cable TV. I've done some fiber optics, industrial automation, alarm systems, um, phone lines. A couple of years ago, a guy from a cabling company that I was in governance for a project, and they asked me what what I've done so far in telecom, and I told them the only thing that I haven't done was building mobile phone networks. At the time, I was a Wi-Fi network admin, and I am still am. So I've specialized mainly in Wi-Fi networks. I've done some point-to-point laser project. I've done, yeah, pretty much everything end to end. So you were a plumber. Cool. That's pretty damn cool. Well, I'm actually. Oh, you were working on pools. Cool. So I'm actually quite indie as well. So electricity, we do have some. Well, compared to the rest of the world, we do have some weird electricity in North America. So I'm also familiar with plumbing, with carpentry, with concrete and buildings and pretty much everything. Um, Workshop is still full of tools. Climatisation. So you were doing some air conditioning and also photovoltaic. Uh, that's I haven't played much with photovoltaics panels and the battery system associated with. Although I use, well, in especially in telephony, I've worked on large battery banks in central offices. Um, some of those buildings are actually in, at least here, by law, those buildings are required to be fully independent without generators for at least 24 hours. Um, so you have to get literally basement of the or even the first floor of those buildings are literally battery banks everywhere. Kind of weird to work on these because you just cannot shut down anything. You just work on live all the time. Minus 48 volts with between anything between 5 and 6,000 amperes on the bus bar, because those aren't cables. Those would melt literally. uh Little project and sell more water, but that doesn't work. Yeah, it's this kind of thing that will make it or break it. Selling water, especially in Tunisia, is probably something that you're more used to than we are, because it is just the water grid is as developed as our electrical grid. So we just got water from the city, and it's a fixed price for most of us. There's some cities with uh, meter water, so they pay by, or they got an annual allocation and they pay the extra. But yeah, it's I never live in a city where it is, because they are so infrequent here. Um, okay, yeah. when you get a family at 23 years old, it's you're married, you're getting children's probably right now. Yeah, you have to to get uh, to get the folks to and to you got some people that needs to be taken care of, and that's perfectly normal. Um, I'm in a situation where I don't have any children, not because I didn't want it, just the opportunity just didn't materialize. I've been working, well, up to last year actually. I've noticed that I've been working anything between 60 and 80 hours, working and or studying for about the last a bit more than 10 years. So I took a break, literally a big break. Um, at some point when I've used to live in Eastern Quebec and working especially as an alarm technician, alarm system in both houses and commercial and industrial facilities. Um, I actually used to drive close to 100,000 kilometers per year in a small car, literally. I made some good money, but at the same time, it wasn't as great. I still love driving and doing some servicing systems all over the place. Might get back into this as actually. I'm looking into my opportunities right now. But yeah, but aside of that, I'm actually driving time to time a bus. I do have my license for 24 passenger and less, and yeah, time to time I'm volunteering for the Quebec Bikes Association, and yeah, time to time I'm driving a bus for them, taking care of people that needs assistance. So yeah, that's basically what I have I had to talk about. And this I still believe that this little gem I fill it to the brim and probably do another vid on. Il faut faire tout c'est la vie. Yep, basically, you need to do whatever needed to get it to work. It's you need to put bread, at least bread, maybe butter on the table at some point. And yeah, especially here, you cannot get you cannot get by without a roof on your head. Uh, some extremists, I call them extremists at some point, where people lives on the street just like everywhere on the planet. But at the same time, it is especially over winter. It is hard and cold climate. I've I've done some bushcraft type things over winter, and at minus 30, 35, plus the wind factor, the wind chill. This overnight, it is brutal. It is harsh and brutal. And obviously, my wife's cat, that whole cat woke up, is waking up and letting everybody knows in this house that she's up and still alive after 19 years. Jeez. So yeah, yeah, literally. She's fine. She's a good cat, but at the same time, she's driving me crazy. Kind of funny, actually. Well, yeah. Thanks. We have kind of yeah, many people will consider that North America is kind of a paradise of well, either Christianity or whatever related to and religion. But Quebec is kind of weird in that sense that we kicked out the Roman Catholic Church pretty much out of here in the 60s. Um, we're now living into a country where, yeah, officially we're acquainted with some sort of religion, either Catholicism in its broad sense, the Jews, the Muslims. Everybody's live pretty much alongside each other and without major issues. But literally, the French, especially French Canada, has kicked out the Roman Catholic Church pretty hard. Um, I was reading a couple months ago some papers from actually a US based scholar that was comparing well, cultural revolutions and societies. And one of his conclusion is that Quebec in the between the 50s and 60s switched from, let's say, s- a second, I don't like this term, but this like a second world economy and culture to a first world economy and culture. Industrialization was pretty on the way, but socially we didn't had much, just like pretty much everyone else, and we were far behind, even by some standard in Canada, other provinces. And we kicked in gear and got everything done pretty much at the same time. Uh, and this is partially why our infrastructure right now that hasn't been maintained properly is falling over. Everything was built at the same time, pretty much everything. And nowadays we need to demolish and reconstruct pretty much everything because it wasn't maintained. Um, we're far from being the an example in terms of corruption and other means. We're actually not in a bad position, but we're not in the best position to do so. And yeah, bosses are still bosses, and unions are. I don't get. I don't want to get into politics. Unions are driving me as much crazy as the bosses these days. So. It is still a good country to live in and to immigrate in. Actually, we're doing our best to integrate our immigrations and people that came all over the world into an inclusive society. Don't we don't really care if you're black, if you're yellow, if you're white, if you're just be a good person and just be helpful for each other. Whatever happens in your bed or whatever beliefs you have, it is still private business. uh, it is far away from my country, at least. I'm not sure what you meant for. You can type it in French if you want to. So I'm doing it in English mainly to get. I don't mind doing it in French, but at the same time, I I wanted to get something out for with this. So uh, best it is far away from my country, at least. Well, geographically, yes, but it's not. It is these days. We're about 8 hours away from Tunisia, from Quebec. Basically, take a flight, and you might have to transfer in Europe to get into Tunisia, but it is not. It is no longer a huge deal. I've read that there will be some flight between London and, is it Sydney, I believe, in Australia, nonstop, nonstop flight between these airports. 17 hours of flight straight up. You'll get two full crews on board for passengers. That's that's pretty much incredible. So yeah, 17 hours. So at this point, there's 17 hours, and we were 200 years ago. The same trick would have taken months to happen to get people back and forth. And we're now speaking in hours. It is not cheap. Just understand this. But 17 hours. It is pretty damn good, I would say. What else that I've read this week? Oh yeah, there's two major railroad companies in Canada for freight. I mean, passengers are being taken care of by what we call a crown corporation. So it is owned by government, called Via Rails or Rail, whatever it is, French or English. But the two freight companies are actually private and listed on stock markets. And one of them is called Canadian National, and the second one is Canadian Pacific. And Canadian Pacific, on their website this week, were advertising they would do Vancouver to Toronto in 4 days or less. It is something like 4 or 5 thousand kilometers in 4 days. Uh, and right now, I believe that the what they call the rail utilization ratio. So you need to take into account the cars getting back and forth. Sometimes you got double lane rails, one in each direction. Sometimes you got single rail lanes for which cars needs to be on side tracks to let another one pass in the other direction well, and you'll get the priority to get on. But in Canada, for both corporation, we're looking into 85%. It's a the schedule is the schedules are actually quite tight, and yeah, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, that's funny because I actually the what we called Canada as a country was signed in well, about, it was our the 120, oh geez, I don't remember. In 1867, the Canadian Confederation was signed in between four provinces, which were Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, around a project that basically wanted to get a link, well, a rail link, rail track between all four provinces. And that's where Canada became a country on. Um, and for the record, this constitution was signed into another soon-to-be province called Prince Edward Island that joined the confederation either the next year or a few years right after. And close after they complete the project, which was called the Grand Trunk. They began their own journey across Canada to reach British Columbia. And up to 1905, this railroad um, got into, well, territories. These were not provinces. And last provinces to join were Alberta and Saskatchewan in 1905. Manitoba came a bit sooner than British Columbia in 1875, I believe. I believe that Manitoba was 1871 or something like this, and got expanded over time, well, several times. And we got three northern territories, which are called Yukon, Northwest Territories, and that and at some point that was split up into, well, the Northwest Territories and something called another territories called Nunavut, which is basically Inuits self-governing, which is, I'm fine with this. And it is actually the sole territory and or province in Canada that doesn't have any political parties. Everybody in this at this assembly are independent members, which is, in my own opinion, a good thing. No political parties, no messing around. You're showing up yourself and not dealing with anything else than the benefit of your electors, and that's it. Hmm. Who reached in aside of Hamza? Nope, nobody else. That's funny. I'm time to time I'm showing up as a participant on this chat, and when I'm looking at the the count, I'm actually one of them, which is fine. But why should be showing up into the participant if I'm the one that broadcast? Anyway, so yeah, yeah. So at 35 degrees Celsius, it is painfully hot. The other thing that you may not know, Hamza, is that Montreal, and especially along well, in some part of Quebec, the climate is actually really humid. It is not the dry air that many places where, probably like Tunisia actually. It is probably more dry air than humid. There's there's lake and fresh water everywhere here, and I'm glad that we have this opportunity. If I can remember right, I believe that Canada has a tenth of all fresh water resources in the world. E- Electricity in Canada is, well, actually in Quebec. I'm not going to speak about Canada, but in Quebec is mainly produced by um, hydroelectric dams. We're just putting a dam on a river and get the turbines to spin off. Um, I don't want to put numbers down, but it is something between 95 and 98% of our electricity being produced by dams. Um, it is a natural resource, yes, and we have rivers to do it. We're actually sending a lot of electricity to US as well. They're at a good price, and I'm not gonna lie on. At some point, we made really good money on. Now it is less than it was, just because the natural gas, um, with all fracking, about uh, about crude oil that is ongoing in U.S. changed the deal for, well, U.S. is now the largest oil producer in the world. They did that change from, well, within 10 years. 10 years ago, yes, U.S. you had scattered production everywhere, from Texas to downtown LA or San Diego, which is actually kind of cool because they're still pumping oil from there. Um, we do have tar sands in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, but they're still tar sands. They're not the prettiest thing to deal with. Some natural gas, but fracking really changed the energy market in North America. Um, Natural gas is darn cheap these days, and the only thing that prevents people to jump on is actually the pipelines and the gazoduct to get gas natural down to each house. That's funny because when I've bought this house, I was looking into get. I had to change the heating system. It was based on gas oil with different taxes and abatement, but still too expensive to deal with. And in my mind, it wasn't a big. I just switched on and chose to convert everything to electricity because it just didn't made any sense to continue paying for, well, even replacing that system with the same thing. But if natural gas were available at my house, I would have switched to natural gas rather than electricity, just to get myself into more than one resource. And the worst part about this is natural gas stops about 75 meters from my house, and there's no way the gas company will bring it to my house unless I pay. I believe they wanted me to pay like 25 or $30,000 to do it, and they would be owner and distributor of the whole pipeline and free to serve my neighbors. So I didn't make it. But one of the few things for which I wanted to get natural gas was not only to for heating or for cooking, but also to put the damn big generators in my backyard. Because you can run, um, not diesel, but regular gas engines. I'm gonna say you can convert them to run on something called propane. I think that butane is more common in Europe, in North Africa, than propane. But propane is a close derivative from the refining process and is produced alongside butane anyway. And you can actually get a conversion kit from uh, from um, regular gas or regular gas engine to run it on either propane or natural gas. And natural gas and propane are quite similar, except that gas are, because it is, yes, natural. It's not the result from refining. Or is actually dirtier for the engines than propane. So you need basically two filters to get rid of the particle before entering the engine. But even a large generator, I could probably be powering my whole house for fairly decent price actually for the cost of generator and running over natural gas. And that was, well, if I could, I would have it done right out of that. I've lived through the ice storm in '98, and this is one of the things for which I'm still keeping, and I'll be keeping in mind for the rest of my life. I don't want to be stuck again into a situation where I will not sustain my family. I will probably still volunteer to get people back on track and working again. I've been volunteering for the Canadian Red Cross for last 20 years as well. So, but I still want to get my things straight up and be self-sufficient in some sort of ways. Um, this being said, and because I'm speaking about this, I'm not a prepper in any way. I I don't consider myself a doomsday prepper. I'm considering myself as, yeah, maybe a prepper in the way that I'm gonna survive myself for a reasonable amount of time, and that's it. I cannot get I cannot get around of people prepping for aliens or zombies and whatever else. I'm not gonna do it. Uh, I do have my garden. I do have my things of producing and self-sustaining myself, but I'm not gonna survive the apocalypse if need be. Yeah, convert to natural gas. Yeah, I really'd like to get natural gas in at some point of my life. In my life, it is. You still need to get some maintenance. You still need to get some other stuff as well, but it's not. It is not complicated, right? It is something that you need that you still need to do and to deal with at some point. But yeah, I'm totally fine with this. It is not a huge deal. So, and this is partially something that I'd like that I wanted to get a good kit on which I can tie it straight to my tie and to work around with. I'm not gonna carry a full on medical bag that will cover probably a month or even major injuries than what I should be really taking care of. Um, I do have tourniquets. I do have uh, uh, compressive bandages and stuff to and the means to do it. And more important, I do have the knowledge to use them. I'm still I'm still keeping my first aid certification on ongoing for and getting the knowledge to getting along. Not only the base minimum as you just type in AMSA, I'm doing more than I should, and I'm fine with this. This is why, well, I got involved with, and it was like taking care of people on sporting. It was a ice hockey tournament and another one college. Um, there are just we do have some schools that have very strong hockey programs here, and they're making their games. They're just gathering in one city for one weekend, doing a bunch of game all together, then switching off for a couple of weeks, then back on into another city to do it. They are not tournament; they are just like regular season, if I can put it that way. But they're still required to get some medical attention on site. And a close friend. He's not a close friend, but it's a good friend of mine. Actually got some shoulder surgery um, last November. Yeah, and he called me in to because he's doing it all winter long, and he asked me if I would take his place for that weekend. So I stepped in, and yeah, I'm gonna do it. Only to find out that it's very different from what I've been doing in the past, and those are teenagers um, with all their characters, and they're they're proud, their fitness, and the way that they plays these games, just like it is for football, what we call soccer here, because football is totally different. Anyway, and just yeah, it's basically the what these guys were doing. And yes, carrying the full backpack for a weekend is sometimes fine, but at the same time, it is not. I found out that I don't need a full backpack. I just need a couple of things, maybe comprehensive bandages if one blade gets over some part of the that cuts the body and needs to get something something a bit more appropriate. You'll get you'll need also, because of the nature and the speed involved in this in ice hockey, you might need something to deal with fractures. Um, so what we call a sand splint, which is basically a sheet of aluminum or aluminum, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I don't care. Between two foams. So you can, it is basically mold. You can mold it for about everything. If you want to, I can show one of those sheet to you. Um, and they are, even if you're getting into the hospital, they don't need to remove the whole thing to get X-rays or anything else. It just gets through. It is not iron based, so, and you can use it also to as um, as a furno, or um, in French we call this collet cervical. In English, I believe it is just a neck brace. I believe it is called a neck brace. But the same sheet can be just formed as a neck brace, and to stabilize the any neck or head injuries, which fortunately I didn't had to, but it is something that may arise at some point. So you know about the thing, yeah? Okay. So it's not overly complicated, but at the same time, you just need to be prepared and to deal with. And naturally, you got the small boo boos where you need band-aids and or plasters, and you need some disinfection stuff, and yeah, basically it's not overly complicated. You just need to get some stuff on. Yeah, I tend to use alcohol more than peroxide, hydrogen peroxide, or anything. Sometime what we call uh, BZ, BZD, another disinfectant that exists and actually authorized in Canada. So not sure about anywhere else in the world. So I'm not gonna get too much into. But yeah, that's kind of like doing this. Although I won't make it my career, though. I I just love too much what I'm doing right now in telecom and computer networks. By the way, if you need some advice for Wi-Fi or home networking, you can always contact me too, and I can guide you through, especially if you have some issues with Wi-Fi. I'm making this point mainly because I've been doing Wi-Fi for last, well, almost full time for last 6 years or so, in both very small but also very large networks. Uh, at some point, I've managed up to 20, between 5 and 20, when one customer had 20,000 access point or something similar as a router. Um, on their premise, large manufacturing facilities and office space and such. So I'm getting, yeah, quite familiar with the thing. And I'm just speaking about, again, about first aid, but something that many people thinks that they don't need as part of their first aid kit is duct tape. Duct tape. Yep, duct tape. It saved me a lot of trouble over time. Um, Something else, just carry a freaking Sharpie, whatever it is. Just write some information, even on the person receiving treatment. You might want to get some timestamp. And unfortunately, especially if the person is unconscious at the hospital, over a couple of days, it's going to be washed away anyway. So I, at very first, I was not inclined to, but working with other folks, I've been quickly being a fan of just writing timestamp straight up on the skin, I tend to not do it on uh, over clothing, but yeah, just write down whatever need be to get things, uh, the messages, various messages being passed along to medical personnel, because you're just the first link in that chain to get people back on track. Um, Triangular bandages. They're inexpensive to buy, but they're cheap as hell to make if you got an old set of bedding. Just cut them in triangular shapes. Those are 30, 36 by 36 by 51. Hold on. I got a friend of mine trying to reach me. I'll just type in quickly. I'll just type in quickly a quick message to tell him that I'm gonna call them back right after I'm done with you. Well, with anybody that wants to watch this anyway. So yeah, a couple things like this that needs to be done. So then at dinner time, jeez, what time is it in right now in Tunis or I don't know which city you are, but I'm fine. It is right now 16:10 here in Canada. Anyway, I'm gonna leave anyway, so it's gonna be done for tonight. We can catch on Tuesday night if you want to be with us. 21:10, so you're 5 hours away. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. We'll catch on Tuesday night if you're with us on Raindance Bushcraft live stream on Jesse's live stream. So Hamza was glad to get a moment with you tonight. Well, this afternoon for night for me and tonight for you. Anyhow, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and yeah, and God bless you as well, and we'll catch on in the next days. Goodbye, guys.